arms units, and there are many different stripes across our joint force. The era of politically correct, overly sensitive, don't hurt anyone's feelings leadership ends right now.
The Secretary said that for too long the military promoted leaders for the wrong reason, based on their race, gender, and other so-called historic firsts, but that ends with the Trump administration. Hegseth criticized fat troops and generals, saying they're unacceptable and create a bad look. He said that from now on, service members will have to meet height and weight requirements and take fitness tests twice a year. The Secretary also said no to beards, long hair, and superficial individual expressions. Hegseth had a message to military leaders. Those who disagree with the new policies should resign. President Trump says he's giving Hamas terrorists only a few days to accept his Gaza peace plan. That's the 20-point plan he announced yesterday to end the fighting in the enclave.
I'm going to do about 3 or 4 days. We'll see how it is. All of the Arab countries are signed up. The Muslim countries all signed up. Israel's all signed up. We're just waiting for Hamas. And Hamas is either going to be doing it or not. And if it's not, it's going to be a very sad end.
Trump added that the main points for Hamas are to give back all remaining hostages and to stop the fighting. But the president warned that if Hamas doesn't agree, then the US will let Israel continue its military campaign in Gaza. Israel has long said it wants to completely eradicate Hamas. Trump said that Israel's military killed 25,000 Hamas fighters since the October 7th attacks. The president also highlighted that Hamas leadership has been eliminated 3 times since then. Reactions are
Our nuclear deterrence capabilities like never before. And we've begun construction on what we call the Golden Dome missile defense shield. It'll be the most sophisticated in the world.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth also spoke to the military brass, emphasizing the shift in military culture with stricter standards.
For too long, we've promoted too many uniformed leaders for the wrong reasons, based on their race, based on gender quotas. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are. So whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a 4-star general, you need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test.
He also directed that all troops in combat roles will have to meet the highest male standards.
But when it comes to any job that requires physical power to perform in combat, those physical standards must be high and gender neutral. If women can make it, excellent. If not, it is what it is.
Hegseth also defended his firing of many military officials that allowed these policies to flourish at the department, especially ones regarding accusations of wrongdoing, which he says have morphed into a policy of walking on eggshells.
No more frivolous complaints. No more anonymous complaints.
Both Trump and Hegseth promised that these sweeping changes are imminent. And President Trump signed an executive order in early September renaming the Department of Defense to the Department of War, a title it held since George Washington all the way until just after World War II. Reporting by Jack Bradley, NTD News.
The DHS announces that it found evidence of Biden administration officials weaponizing the TSA against political opponents. An internal investigation uncovers widespread abuses targeting innocent Americans. According to the DHS report, the Biden TSA used the January 6th Capitol breach to watch list and harass several dozen Americans. This was despite there being no evidence of wrongdoing or illegal behavior and no clear threat to aviation security. The campaign continued through June 2021. The report also said Biden TSA officials systematically watch-listed and denied boarding to those who resisted mask mandates on airplanes. This came nearly 6 months after the CDC relaxed its indoor mask mandate. The DHS has referred the case to the Justice Department and Congress for further investigation. The department also removed 5 senior leaders from their positions. Coming up, ICE arrests over 400 illegal aliens in Central Florida. The Department of Homeland Security says agents targeted individuals with outstanding criminal warrants. A tale of two states. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry calls for federal help to tackle violent crime, while Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker pushes back against federal agents. That's more after this break. The arrest of more than 400 illegal aliens in Central Florida. The Department of Homeland Security said agents targeted aliens with outstanding criminal warrants and individuals subject to deportation. According to DHS, the arrests included those charged and convicted of lewd and lascivious behavior, battery, domestic violence, prostitution, vehicle theft, hit and run, and driving under the influence. DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said, quote, "This was another successful operation to arrest the worst of the worst." McLaughlin added that the operation could, quote, "serve as a blueprint nationwide." Louisiana says it needs help. Governor Jeff Landry is asking Washington for assistance in tackling a violent crime surge across the state. And Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker pushing back on any federal agents in his state. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more.
Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry announced he has formally asked for federal assistance to activate up to 1,000 Louisiana National Guard members, speaking on Fox News.
Who would not want help in combating criminals on your streets? Who does not want their communities in their cities to be safe?
Landry said there were ongoing public safety concerns regarding high crime rates throughout the state. The Republican governor says police officers are overwhelmed by the number of homicides, carjackings, and gang violence.
President Trump has amassed the best cabinet of public servants and folks who really want to fight crime, like General Bondi, Secretary Noem, FBI Director Kash Patel. These folks know how to keep Americans safe.
The National Guard soldiers are expected to supplement law enforcement in high crime areas, provide logistical and communication support, and secure critical infrastructure.
The troops are happy to come. Remember, the National Guard are citizen soldiers. They are members, they are the fabric of our communities. They're our neighbors, they're our sons, they're our daughters.
In 2024, Louisiana recorded 520 violent crimes and nearly 2,300 property crimes per 100,000 residents, rates nearly 45% and 30% higher than the national averages. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is singing a different tune. Pritzker on Monday described Homeland Security's request for 100 troops to the state to back up ICE agents in Chicago as sowing fear, intimidation, and division among Americans. Pritzker said, quote, "With one voice, we are telling this unwarranted and unconstitutional
how
occupation
come
to
the
get out of
citizens of Chicago
Tensions
welcome
flared
it?
last Friday outside an ICE processing facility in Broadville, Illinois. More than 200 protesters gathered near the gate in front of the facility, while dozens more crowded another entrance, chanting, "Arrest ICE! Shoot ICE!" Federal agents made at least 17 arrests and confiscated a gun from one rioter who was apprehended at the scene. And the Justice Department is suing Minnesota.
2 weapons.
It accuses the state and several local governments of using sanctuary policies that block immigration enforcement. Attorney General Pam Bondi says the policies defy federal law and put residents at risk. Similar lawsuits have recently been filed against New York, Los Angeles, and Boston. Bondi wrote on X Monday that the rule of law will prevail. The Attorney General says the DOJ is deploying agents to protect ICE facilities, arrest violent
to do, right? He's protecting the physical safety of the American people and the liberties that are promised through the Constitution. It's unfortunate that local officials are abdicating their duties, but I'm very grateful that this president is stepping in to protect the American people.
So you mentioned you're representing Andy Ngo, right? In light of that, can you talk to us about how does Antifa keep evading accountability?
Yeah, I think this is kind of a multifaceted process, right? So there's really not arrests taking place, and I don't blame law enforcement for that phenomenon. In places like Portland, prosecutors, these are elected positions generally across the country, prosecutors refuse to prosecute Antifa for their lawless crimes. And when mayors and other elected officials are marching in the streets with members of Antifa, law enforcement has really no incentive to put their lives at risk to stop these violent terrorist thugs in the streets. If they're going to risk their lives to arrest someone, only to have prosecutors null pros the case, why take that risk, right? And so here, now that federal agencies are going to get involved, that they'll investigate, that they'll dismantle illegal operations, these terrorist operations by Antifa, the result is going to be a much safer America.
So, under current U.S. law, how is domestic terrorism defined? How does that work when President Trump is designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization?
Yeah, well, I think what's key here is that it's providing leadership and instruction to agencies that you just mentioned, right? To the FBI, to the DOJ, to be involved really on a more localized level in protecting the rights and the liberties of the American people. I think if law enforcement agents and these local communities, right, if prosecutors in Portland were doing their job, then the president wouldn't have to take this act to protect the American people. But they've abdicated their duties, and they've left the president with quite a mess to clean up. So we're very grateful at the Center for American Liberty that the president is doing this. Just this morning, I saw on social media images again of Antifa chasing down journalists in the streets of Portland. And so I think, there's a huge story here in what the president is doing to protect the American people. There's a huge story that's not being talked about. And it's ironic, right? It's that the media, legacy media organizations are ignoring this. And in some cases, when they do cover it, they're actually criticizing President Trump for taking these actions. It's very ironic. The actions that he is taking are actually protecting their First Amendment rights as journalists. Something that Antifa, if you report negatively of Antifa, you become a target. Look at the streets of Portland. The graffiti with Andy Ngo's name on it, it's everywhere.
And you're right, some have criticized President Trump for doing this. Some are arguing that Antifa is closer to, a leaderless movement than an organized terrorist group. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, Antifa is certainly an ideology. I think President Biden described Antifa as an ideology, but it's not merely an ideology. It's an ideology with legs, right? And it's it's a radical terrorist ideology that's being inflicted in streets across the country. And so, again, this is a very, very good act of leadership from the White House. And the result is going to be the American people being much safer. We're seeing what the president's leadership is doing in the city of Washington. It looks like about to see that play out in other cities across the country.
This is something interesting that I've pondered about. Can you comment on this? Does the First Amendment have protections for free association, even with Antifa?
So the First Amendment absolutely protects the right of association, right? That's certainly encompassed in it. I think what's important to remember is that this executive order does not infringe upon your right of association. It does not infringe upon Antifa's ability to protest peacefully in the streets. The executive order expressly is targeted toward criminal activity. It actually says illegal operations. It's the operative language from the executive order. So I think the White House was very careful in drafting this executive order so that it wouldn't be applied as a suppression of protected First Amendment activity, but rather as a law enforcement mechanism to give the federal agencies involved the resources that they need to keep the American people safe, and to do so in a constitutionally respectful manner.
So as we already know, on the bullet casings that were fired against Charlie Kirk, there were anti-fascist messages on them, right? How can Americans and government push back against radical ideologies in today's digital environment?
Yeah, I think the answer is more speech. I think when we self-censor, it gives organizations and ideologies like Antifa a tremendous amount of power. But if we continue to call out Antifa for what it is, and it itself is a fascist organization that uses force and threats of force to intimidate the American people, to suppress the exercising of First Amendment rights, when we continue to call it out for what it is, it actually gives the American people a tremendous amount of power, and it pushes back against the self-censorship that Antifa wants. So again, I think here the solution, just from our perspective, right? What can just an average American, what can we do? It's to continue to talk. It's to continue to engage in dialogue, to be honest about it, what Antifa is actually doing. I think the answer is more speech.
Yeah, very well said today, Mark. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thanks again.
The U.S. will